We've had some beautiful weather lately, very unseasonably warm and sunny and nice out around these parts. Tomorrow it's going to be starting to rain a bunch, and then we might get our first frost in 2 nights. And so kind of going around looking for the things that I want to make sure we bring in as a harvest before it gets too cold. One of those is the harvest of seed of sorghum and Piper Sudan grass, both crops that are pretty new to us. Not a huge field of them, but little cover crop experiments here and there set in motion this summer that were really promising, grew beautifully. Most of them are over at our neighbor's spot on a new garden area. So I'm gonna grab a wheelbarrow, some pruners, and some string to harvest stalks. We'll string them up in the living room. I thought for folks that are interested, I would take you along. And also to solicit lots of feedback and ideas for folks that have worked with these crops. What are the best ways to store them and all that? Well, I'll itemize the questions that I have as I go through and do it. But for now, I should grab some stuff and head over there, so stick around. Right now, I am in the driveway of our lovely neighbor Ian's, looking at a nice thicket of a mix of Piper Sudan grass, sorghum, and some maybe hybrid between them. Anyway, this was used as a cover crop in covering soil that was coming up, pardon my coarse pan there, when we dug this little pond. I believe I documented this, and if so, I will link to it here. You can see this is a pond we dug this summer as a water holding space so that we can use a pump and a solar panel to lift water and fill a truck with containers to bring down to our field. But then it also offers the opportunity of being ecosystem service for frogs. It was a beautiful, simple place to put a bunch of the upland Japanese rice starts that we had. Not enough to really harvest food for the winter, but enough to keep the seed alive and growing. And turns out to be a very happy place for watercress. So we're going to use this as a watercress propagation area. But anyway, all the soil that came out from that, we used his little tractor and front loader to deposit on this side of the driveway. So this was all very new soil. Pretty raw, a little clayey, and the clear winner by a long shot. This was back whenever that video was. I'll try to see if I can pick out the time or the day. But we sowed the seeds that day and they grew beautifully. Now they're flopping over. I feel like birds are starting to get to them. A lot of seed to save within here. Again, this might not be so much for us to harvest for food for ourselves, but to really start collecting some of these genetics and not buying in more. So much seed. A single one of these seeds made all this. The very first moment of frost, I suspect the entirety of this block will melt down to nothing, and that's miraculous. It is so much gooey, beautiful organic matter that terminates with the freeze. Very thankful for what this crop is doing so far. I think a few things are happening within here. The bulk of what is growing, and this is where I'm very, very happy to be told I'm wrong or give me more information. This looks to me like Piper Sudan grass. It's a slightly smaller seed, very, very numerous, kind of flat, maybe somewhere in the realm of broom corn sort of vibes. Maybe this is food for us. Probably it could be food for our chickens. I do want to cut these stalks relatively back 2 or 3 feet. We'll hang them in our living room so it can finish up drying. But basically with the rains that are coming in the freeze, I don't really want to leave this warm weather seed out in that situation. So we'll cut them, throw them in the wheelbarrow, and then I'm seeing here what pretty clearly looks more like sorghum to me. Really chunky nugget seeds, much thicker. This is something I think we'd be excited to try to cook and understand as part of our diet in the winter. It's a very prolific amount of seed. So the work for now is to harvest the stalks of what feel like Sudan grass and the sorghum as their own thing. We even have a cultivar sorghum in here, if I can find it, and start filling the wheelbarrow with these stalks, keeping them a little bit separated and organized. It'll also be nice to harvest all the stalks that are drooping over the driveway and cut it back so it feels a little bit cleaner when he drives through. It's about 1 minute of harvest so far. Lots and lots of seeds. Pull the last bit of leaf off before we bring them inside, then figure out how to do nice bundles so they can hang with air moving through them. And it's starting to tidy this up. A little bit more to do on the south end. Whole lot of the heads taken, a whole bunch left for the wild birds, maybe for us to cut and toss into our chicken run, which is just on the other side of that fence. And a fair bit of yield to figure out how to process and hang and dry. Sorghum looking on the right, so we can keep that in its own area as one type of cover crop and grain crop, and what I believe is Piper Sudan grass. Here's where I'd love some feedback. What is the best way to dry these crops down? We're thinking about tying them up and hanging them in our living room. We're going to be running our wood stove soon, so that should help. Are there ways to thresh this that we should know about? Maybe some recipes that folks swear by. Is Sudan grass a viable food crop? But very little effort, extremely high amounts of biomass, lots and lots of grain for somebody, some sort of flying being or mammal. And all of this will just leave as standing until the frost, and then it'll melt back into the landscape without further intervention. Very cool set of crops to start understanding more and more and integrating into our summer pioneering soil opening garden creation regimes. Hey, a neat bonus crop. I forgot that we had planted bush beans. I think these are called greasy beans. Some folks gave to us a traditional South Carolina bean. Growing in here in and amongst the Sudan grass and the sunchokes on the other side of the fence. Looks like they did really well, and there's tons in here. I'll be honest, I kind of forgot that they were in here, so I'm going to grab them, throw them in the wheelbarrow, and it's yet another crop from having pushed some seed in the ground in the spring and forgotten about.